Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Chan, and I'm the co-founder of Final Bow for Yellowface. Welcome to today's episode of What's the Tea, a daily conversation with a dancer of Asian descent during the month of May for Asian Pacific Heritage Month to highlight the achievements and experiences of Asians in dance. Today, I'm very excited to chat with a real Chinese movie star, Chi Cao, who is also raising money today for UNICEF, and you might know him from the film Mao's Last Dancer. Welcome to the show today.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Phil. It's an absolute pleasure to be on the show. And I just want to say, I'm really happy to be involved and talking about this topic, which is not quite often talked about. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Of course. And today you're raising money for a very special charity to you. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
It's just in general. I think you've mentioned the organization is actually global, and they do a lot of things for third world countries, and especially with this pandemic. You know, I myself and a lot of people are very fortunate to still be able to survive, to have a life, to have water or food. And there are people in Africa, and there are people in the poor countries that could not survive, nevertheless, without this pandemic. So, you know, I've been a supporter for them for a very long time, and I just want to raise the issue for everyone who's willing to go to their website and then just give as much as you can, any help you can, to help the unfortunate people in the world, basically.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. So thank you so much for raising awareness for UNICEF. If you go to unicef.org, you can raise money today to help those who are in desperate need. First of all, let's start with how are you doing? Where in the world are you? How's your Corona quarantine? What's going on with you these days?
Not too bad, actually. I'm in UK. I've based in UK for the last almost 30 years. I came to the United States, United Kingdom when I was 15. And right now I'm staying in my flat, and I'm in Birmingham, a city of Birmingham, because I used to be a principal with the Birmingham Royal Ballet. And I managed to get back to my training because for people who don't know, I've retired from a ballet company, a professional ballet, 2 years ago, 2018. And so since then, I've been training to become a strength and conditioning coach. And also I'm doing ballet coaching and tutorings, mainly in China with the companies. But so far, I'm just concentrating on my study. So, so this gives me a good opportunity to actually keep myself fit because there's nothing to do. So I get myself a nice training programs throughout. This is our 10th week of lockdown. So just gradually building up my body and testing my theories on myself. And just basically doing that.
So we're going to have to definitely use the hashtag crazy ripped Asians when we talk about you.
Well, not so much ripped. I think it's very hard to get ripped when you don't have enough room to move around. But I think, I'm definitely happier to be able to do those exercises, to be able to feel good about it, So
great.
So yeah.
So I know that my first exposure to you was not as a performer on stage, but in the film Mao's Last Dancer, and so I think a lot of people associate you with that film. But I'd like to learn more about you as a dancer as well. So can you maybe tell our viewers where you started your dance training and kind of where you're from? Yeah,
I have to say though, as I was very fortunate as because of the film, that a lot of people from the States, from all part of the world actually get to know me, which I'm absolutely blessed. My background is actually quite unusual for the Chinese dancers. My father was a director for the Beijing Dancing Academy, which is still the largest national dance school in China. And my father was a director, and also he was teaching class. So when I was very young age, he always used to bring me to the studio, because at the time nobody really hires nannies I grew up. I was born in 1978, so in early 1980s, China isn't that developed, and so he used to just bring me into the studios, and so all the students became my nannies. They're the caretaker. So while they were doing their stuff, and afterwards they would come and they would just sort of play with me. So from a very young age, I was very comfortable with surrounding by dancers. I was comfortable with men in tights, women in tights, and all the movement that they do. For me, it was a second nature. I don't remember this, but my father used to say that every time he brings me into the studio, I could just sat straight through the whole of the class. So something must be grabbing me. I certainly enjoyed what they do because I was very quiet. And also, those students, when they have free time, they will ask me to point my feet and to see whether I have the facility to become a dancer, because my father was a dancer. And it turned out I have not amazing abilities, but good enough. I've got decent feet and decent postures. But what I had was quite special was my ability to jump, my coordination. I was quite good at that. So at age of about 3 and 4, they constantly just say to me, "Oh, Chi, you're going to become a dancer one day. You're going to be, So for me, it was just, okay, well, if you say so, why not? And but I've done a lot of different things. At the time, the martial art was huge. The Shaolin Temple, the film by Jet Li was just coming out. So everyone wants to be a martial artist. So I went, and they said, "Well, you're too old to start professionally." I was like, "Okay, fine." And 1984, the Los Angeles Olympic and the Chinese gymnastic team did amazing, and so everyone wants to become Li Ning, the Prince of Gymnastics. So I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to do that." And then again, I was too late to start. And so for me, yeah, the dancing was always there, but I never really took quite seriously because I'm quite active. I like the martial arts. I've actually went to a proper skating camp, at the time, to be able to select to become, hopefully, a professional skater. And around the same time, my father had opportunity to go to the Paris Opera Ballet company to study for a year. So when he came back, he brought back a lot of ballet videos, which we didn't have access to in China. And I began to see not only the Chinese dancers, I began to see some of the best dancers in the world at the time. Fernando Bojones, Bershnikov, Patrick Dubon, all those superstars. And that's when I was like, okay, so there's more. Ballet is more than what I see in the studio. Though there were still already a very good dancers coming from China at the time. I mean, we're talking about the gods of ballet, Bershnikov and, Peter Martin. So I remember very clearly that my father showed me the video of ABT's Don Quixote, the famous 1983 with, Mr. Bershnikov and Mr. Serhavi. And I was like, can a human being be doing that? I mean, I've never seen anything like it. Back then, I mean, I don't know anything about technique. I know he's jumping high, but I don't know why that I'm so hooked. And that's when I decided, okay, I turned around to my father and said, well, I'm going to audition for the school. And I've made up my mind, I want to be as good as that. And then that's when I really just switched everything off, because I was also having to choose whether doing ballet or doing skating, because with the skating, the leg shape will be developed very differently. So I have to stop skating. And so I went for ballet from that. And I did sort of a bit of training. And at the age of 9, I auditioned to the ballet school. And then the rest of history. I went through the school for 5 years. I had an opportunity to go to Lausanne, and I went to the Royal Ballet School for 2 years. And I joined the Birmingham Royal Ballet. Yeah.
Great. It's so funny to hear that your dad was a ballet teacher, and that's how that became part of your world. It's so funny because a lot of the interviews we've been doing this month, it's been Asian immigrants to the United States or to Europe, and they don't they don't know anything about ballet, but their kids somehow are interested in this foreign art form, and it's something that a lot of parents, especially, don't understand why their kids want to do this.
Yeah.
But for you, it was like it was already part of the culture of your family, and so was your father supportive of a career in dance? Because also some ballet people don't want their kids to be dancers too.
No, they don't, to be honest with you, because as you said, they know how hard it would be. As a life as a dancer, even if you make it to the top, you are facing the retirement and you're facing injuries, you're facing the struggles. Even if you make it to the top, you still have all that. And, that's like 1 in 1,000. And so he really had a great chat with me. And also my mother was a musician, so she was really pushing me to become a musician. But I couldn't sit still. I just had no passion, I guess. I could go to the school, I could go to the ballet class for hours, play about, but I can't sit in front of the piano for 20 minutes. So they were just really just made sure that I know that what I was getting to. And also I had a heart condition, and I guess it was because as I was hitting puberty, apparently sometimes you get that. And so they had a concern about my health, and we went to see a specialist in China, one of the best at the time. And I've been told that it's okay. I had a clear to do those activities. And so I went for it. But really, I think it was really just that the video that made me know how magical one dancer's or the dance form can bring you. I was hooked. How did he do that? And all the music and the that was a great production. It was full of fun. It was a very easy following the storyline, and they performed amazingly. Before their times, their craftsmanship, not only the technical things, but also the acting. It was beautiful. I think that's probably what really made me to go, oh, actually, I know how good a performance can be, and I know how that's going to make people feel. So that's why I want to be part of it.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about role models with you, because obviously seeing Baryshnikov move like that was a big inspiration for you, and also how poetic that you got the opportunity to dance Don Q on tape and film for another generation to look up to you. So very, very poetic to have that. But a lot of the interviewers we've interviewed from China have talked about Li Kunxin as a big role model for them. Did you have any recollection of him growing up, or what was his story like when you were growing up?
To be honest with you, everyone knows who he was back in China. Not because how good he was, it's because the way that he left China. And all the teachers, they will say, how good he was, because it's weird. Like, I know this, people might think it's very political in China, especially at the time, but in the ballet world, it's much less than you think. People still say that he was good. He was one of the best that ever came out of China at the time. And the teacher used to tell us what he was good at, his turns and his ability to jump. But unfortunately, we never had any video of him. So I only knew what he looked like when I started making film, when I started to talk to him, sitting down with him, talk about his life as a background research. Then I actually started to learn more about Li Kunxin, But for a very long time, that everyone knows that he was the best dancer at the time that ever went out to China, from China. But for me, it was very different because, as I said, I had an opportunity to have those access to films. So from a very young age, I was already looking at Baryshnikov, Fernando Bohunitz, Vladimir Vasiliev, Eric. Eric Bohm, yeah. And Anthony Dow. So all those superstars at that time, I already had opportunity to look at it, and also young Carlos Acosta. In 1990 he went to Lausanne, so I'd be able to see that. And so for me, I was really hooked on those dances. Because again, also because we didn't have any videos of any supposedly famous Chinese dancers,
Yeah.
So that's that. So I've seen all of those. So for me, it was very very fortunate. But but talking about role models, I do think most of my generations, I think Mr. Bershnikov is the one that made us wants to become a professional dancer.
Yeah.
You know, dancers 10 years before me might say Nureyev, but I think for us, late 70s, 80s is probably Bershnikov. Yeah.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about your Chinese heritage, and to what degree are you still connected to it? And maybe when you were still dancing, even as a classical artist, even though there
Yeah.
wasn't necessarily Chinese culture, how did you bring your Chinese culture into your work as an artist?
Oh, I mean, it's very weird. I don't know if this ever happened. For me, I almost feel because I almost feel like I've got a double personality now. It's very weird when I speak Chinese or when I go to China. It's as if my mind is switched. I steal every bit of Chinese. I talk to people. I talk to all my friends, and I go out about. I do the things the Chinese way. Because also I was very fortunate. I went home every single year after I joined the Birmingham Royal Ballet. So every single year I had opportunity to go back to China. So from 1996 till now, I see the city changes. I see the problem emerges. I see also the good things happening. So I guess I was never out of time. Unlike a lot of the Chinese dancers in the West, they haven't been back for 10 years. So for them, China has become a foreign country. But every time when I start to speak English or when I go to my workplace, I feel also just as much British as I am, because the first society I've ever grown up and faced is British society. I've been brought up when I was 15 into Britain, and everyone, and also at the time, we didn't have a Chinese students community. At the time, the Chinese people here are already second, third generation immigrants from Hong Kong who speaks Cantonese, which I don't speak. At the time, there was no mainland Chinese, or very few mainland Chinese lives in UK, nevertheless Birmingham. So I had no way to sort of get into that circle. So I lived with an English dancer, and all my friends are foreigners. As you know, Birmingham Royal Ballet is actually very international. We had about 30 something nationalities within the company. So I had, become a very comfortable, if you will, to make friends to them. And so that's probably almost my advantage in that sense, because I think if I have the opportunity to have a lot of Chinese people, naturally that's a comfortable way. I will probably refuse to be mixed into their culture. So for me, it's very weird. But my working ethic when I'm in the company is still very Chinese, the old-fashioned Chinese, the way I've been brought up, the way the film's been shown. I push myself as hard as I can, and I give myself no excuses, sometimes into a very negative way, on too much pressure, and it backfires to me. And that happens a lot in my early careers. And then, later on in my 30s, I start to relax a little bit more, so it becomes better. But yeah, in terms of training, a lot of things, I'm every bit of Chinese. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I love that you mentioned that Birmingham is such a diverse city as well as a diverse company.
Yeah.
In our work,
Yeah.
when we were talking about how Chinese people are represented in the Nutcracker, the Birmingham
Yeah.
Royal Ballet is actually one of the first companies to reach out to us and say, hey, we'd love some help talking about this, because our community is so diverse and we don't want to offend people. So in general, in terms of how we represent race in the ballet world, like if you were to give us a grade, A to F, how well do you think we're doing? And if there's room for improvement, what do you think we need to do to be better?
You mean, can you repeat the question again
Yeah,
in
just
terms of?
like how we represent race in ballet. So like, how are you comfortable with how Chinese people are represented on ballet stages? And if not, what are some ways we can improve?
I think, to be honest with you, I think I understand perhaps, especially in my company, I never felt that. I mean, I know that, especially I think in both nutcrackers, in the Birmingham Royal Ballet and the Royal Ballet, maybe the earlier ones, the dancers have to paint their face yellow, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest with you, I think I'm not sure if it's because the racial problem that isn't as perhaps as bad or as significant within the company. To be honest, I've danced all this time. I never really, or I haven't been offended by that until somebody pointed out. Because the reason being is the Arabians have to paint all of their bodies to the brown, and the Russians have to paint everything white. And so for me, it was like, okay, maybe maybe they just want to sort of pointed out the characteristics of the race, perhaps, but until somebody pointed out, then we're like, actually, yeah, do we need to do that? Again, it's because it's been happening for a very long time that everyone gets used to it. But do we really need to do that? Obviously, you've got companies who has the Chinese costume, and that alone is enough. So. Right. I think it's really good to raise issues like that, because, as I said, maybe I'm not offended because I see this and that, and in our company we never had any racial issues. But that doesn't mean that people coming to see the performance is not getting offended,
right?
Right. So I think it's absolutely great to do that.
I think it's very important that like you mentioned, that when you actually have a Chinese dancer, you don't need to do all of that makeup if you already have a Chinese person there. Just have them have their own makeup, and they're already Chinese. You don't need to add the extra yellow makeup or white makeup. And I know a lot of companies right now are also discussing the blackface issue. So, Misty Copeland recently called out, the Bolshoi for doing blackface in Bayader, saying like, guys, when you have Black people like us doing the ballet, you can't also keep that tradition alive. And so it's challenging for us to have to start to think about this, especially since the tradition, maybe it wasn't meant to be racist when they started it, but just because they didn't have Chinese dancers. So how else are you supposed to do Chinese? But now that we do, we have a responsibility to do better. So
absolutely. But also sometimes when I'm thinking, sorry, I just point out, maybe at the time it wasn't being racist, but it is actually racist, but because everyone's just getting so used to it, so that's probably why nobody's ever pointed out, because maybe the minority race at the time didn't have the voice until now. So that's why it's never been pointed out.
And I think part of even this interview this month, where we've been interviewing dancers every single day, just to be able to weave a tapestry of experiences together to show people how we actually feel, because maybe no one's ever asked us. So this giving people the chance to talk about it, I think, has been very powerful for us. Do you personally have any experiences around discrimination? I know you mentioned that you felt Birmingham Royal Ballet was quite supportive, but in general, have you encountered any discrimination as a result of being Asian in dance that you'd be comfortable sharing with us?
To be honest with you, I want to say that I'm very fortunate. Everywhere I go, from a very early age, in Birmingham, in the Royal Ballet School, and after the film, when I was promoting the film around the world, when I was dancing around the world, everyone was treated me with the most respect. And that probably helped because they know who I am from the film, and I was already established. So, I do feel I'm sure the reason you ask is because I'm sure other dancers have felt they've been discriminated. So all I can say is I was very fortunate to be treated well. And that's perhaps that with my achievement in dance, I get the credit in that sense. People know who I am, they know what I have done, so they give me respect. But I also do want to use this opportunity to say, just because you're a good dancer doesn't mean you're better than anybody else. You have to treat everyone with how you be wanted to treat it, regardless of colors, regardless of what they do. Just because you're a superstar doesn't mean that you can be rude to people. No, the answer is absolutely no. And only by being nice to people that you will be even more influential to people. And that's something, I want to say, in the ballet world, how many divas do we have? A lot. And yet, there's that culture that, if you're a superstar, you can be rude to people. You can be rude to your colleagues. Why? And I grew up like that, thinking, they're big stars. They can't be rude to people, until I went to the film business. I was nobody. And I see everyone so respectful. Maybe I got lucky again. That cast was amazing. The director was, a Oscar-nominated director who was so humble, asking about my opinions. I was like, you what? You asking about my opinion? I'm an amateur. That really reflect. Then I come back. I think, yeah. So I think I'm very fortunate, and I think I hope that everyone will be treated with the most respect as a human being deserved, regardless your color, your gender, your sexuality, and what you do.
Yeah, great. That's beautiful. I do want to talk about the positive sides of representing Asian people.
Yeah.
I think Mao's Last Dancer is maybe the first book I ever read about an Asian person in ballet. Seeing the movie was the first time I saw an Asian person doing ballet and telling a story about Asian people in ballet. And also, it was so beautiful to see that mirrored back to me, and so powerful because, like you said, if you always look up to just Baryshnikov, and then finally when you see someone who looks like you, who also has a similar story, it means, 1,000 times more on an emotional level. Can you talk about what the process was about making this film? And did you know that you'd be telling such an important story that would resonate with so many people when you were making it?
Yeah. I have to say, as I keep saying, that I'm absolutely grateful with my life. I'm the only few dancers could probably say that I've done everything that I want to do in my career and more. And especially, I always want to be, when I was young, I always want to be a dancer, and I did it. But I also want to be a film star. Everyone wants to be a film star, a performer, and I got to do it. And it's just, I was blessed. I was in the right place, knowing the right people at the right time. They have trying to recruit dancers for about 2 years before 2008. That's when the film was made. And so they went through the Hong Kong Ballet. I think they went through Australian Ballet. They went through quite a few companies with Asian dancers. And none of them that Miss Lee and also Bruce Beresford, who was the director, that liked or felt that was suitable for the role. Because Bruce always insists that the dancers to play the main role, the main character who plays Li Chunxin has to be a dancer. Because at this day and age, people won't buy it when you have a double shot, a long shot to see a dancer doing, and you get close up to the feet. And also it would not be as convincing, and it would not be as powerful as you have this guy. Everyone thinks that he's an actor, and then he comes on and he does the thing. So it was always in their minds that
unless you're like someone like Natalie Portman, who can become a ballerina in 2 months and win an Oscar, but that's the very rare occasion.
Yes, but at the same time, that she did use a body double.
Exactly.
She did use a body double, and and well, that's Hollywood. That's another story. But I'm glad that the production team that have that thought. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the opportunity to represent Chinese, to represent Asians. Anyway, so they couldn't find anybody. And mostly some people also, they with my character, which is the adult Li, I need to be able to speak from a broken English to fluent English and fluent Chinese. And who has to dance at the same level as Li Kunxin. And of course, Miss Li have to select. Obviously, when this you film, you want the best representative. And funny how that when he was in the school, that my father was his teacher as well. So he knew me from a very young age, and he knew I was dancing in the West, but he never saw me dancing. So they were kind of sort of desperate. They couldn't find anybody. And at the time that he was, I know a friend of Miss Li Chunxin who came to visit Birmingham, because at the time, Birmingham Ballet had a lot of exchanging programs with Australian Ballet. And he was like, hey, Chi, do you know Li? I was like, well, of course, I know of him. And do you know that he's got a book? Yeah, I've read it. Do you know that they're making a film? I was like, oh, get out of here. Last time we see a ballet film, Central Stage, and the one before that was Turning Point. You know, sorry, one before that was Dancer, and then Turning Point. I mean, wouldn't you get to see exactly what you said? Wouldn't you get to see a ballet film that's been properly made and starring a Chinese guy? I was like, come on. And he was like, no, seriously, we were looking for somebody. Are you be interested? I was like, yeah, of course I'm interested. And everyone was like, you should call it. I was like, nah, it's never going to happen. And then 6 months later, I got a call from him saying that, you know, I'm coming to Birmingham. I've got a conference in London. I wanted to come to see you dance. And I was like, oh, fine. And as I say to my ballet master, I was like, you know, he's coming. And I think it's probably something to do with the film, but nobody knows. So he came, he watched my class, and he was very happy with what I was doing. And then before he left, he said, you know, we've got this project. It's not finalized yet, but we're making this film. And would you be interested to take the audition? I was like, yeah, no problem. A year's gone by, nothing happened. And I was like, okay, it's just, you know, it's come out. He actually said, okay, so do your preparation, go to take some acting lessons. I was like, yeah, fine. And obviously, I was very busy at the time. You know, I was about 30 years old, and I had gone through massive injuries, just came back. So obviously, I didn't do any acting lessons, and I truly didn't believe that's going to happen. I really don't believe it's going to happen. And a year and a half gone by, almost a year and gone by, and I finished my season, and I was about to go back to China for holidays, and I got a call again saying, "Oh, hey, Chi, we've got the team, we've got the money. How's your acting lessons?" I was like, yeah, I'm doing it, and yeah, I will keep going. And I sort of switched off the phone. I was like, oh, I have to get some coaching. So I went back to China. I found a coach from the National Drama School who gave me a 2 weeks intensive crashing course, just the idea what is to be like an actor, and some various of exercise that I could do. And then the season started, and then I got a call again and saying, okay, the director and the producer will come to see you perform. And I looked at the schedule. We were performing in Sunderland, which is a very small city in the northern England. And the theatre wasn't great. It was Rake at the time, and it was very small. It was one of those touring places you just don't want anybody to come and visit. And I was like, okay, gotta make the best that I can do. So they came. Bruce and Jen came. They watched my performance. I was doing Paquita at the time. They watched it, and I took them out for dinner. And Bruce is a big guy, and he was a very big guy. And you know, being Oscar-nominated director, I was intimidated because you've heard stories about how terrifying people in the acting business can be, right? I mean, we've all heard stories and how they can just flick out. So I was very nervous. And I took him to a restaurant, and they sat down. They were like, okay, before anything else, Chi, tell me about yourself. So I said, and this is me, and this is that. And afterwards, I just said to him, I said, Bruce, I'm not an actor, but to be very honest with you, I've read the book, and a lot of the key moments in the book I truly felt how he felt because I've experienced. I know how hard it is to leave home, though the circumstances is very different with me. I could coming out freely, but I don't know when I went back after my school finished, I could still come out. So for me, it was also unknown. When could I visit China again? And with all the loneliness, with all the heartbreaks in the West, without language, without friends. So I totally understand how he felt. And I said, I know I'm no actor, but I can tell you that if I have the opportunity, I can play him because it's my story too. In so many ways, the line crosses. It's my story, perhaps in a more harsher way, but emotionally, the journey is the same. And he was like, okay, come to my hotel tomorrow morning. We do a bit of reading. Went to the hotel, and I was really prepared. I was like, okay, I'm gonna memorize all the lines and being so sort of wind up because I don't know how audition is. It was so easy. Sat down, set the camera. They're just like, okay, we want to see whether the camera like your face. And they literally just read the line. They just want to hear my voice. And so all that preparation was gone out the window. I literally just read a few lines. And they were like, okay, Chi, we'll be in touch. We still have a few people to see. And we'll get back to you soon. I was like, okay, great, thank you. And I was like, okay, we don't know what's going to happen. And I was doing Romeo and Juliet in the afternoon. So I went back home and I went back to the theater. I did my class myself. And as I was putting makeup on, the phone rang. I picked up the phone. It was the producer. It's like, hi, Chi. We just want to know. We just want to let you know that we would like to offer you the part. And because for me, when I was dancing, I'm in the zone. Like everything's blocked out. So I said, oh, thanks very much. Switching off and carried on with my makeup without thinking about it. A friend of mine, Bruce, Robert Chusley at the time was sitting there. Was like, because obviously everyone know at this time in the ballet in my company that I went for audition, and they were like, hey, dude, how did you go? Who was that? And I was like, yeah, I think I got the part. And as I was saying it, I realized that I got the part. But it was so surreal that I literally had to pick up my phone, call back, and saying, I'm very sorry. Did you just call me and tell me that I have the part? And they were laughing. They were bursting to laugh. The producer was like, yes, we did. We will send you a confirmation email. So yeah, so everything is just there, and I finished the half of the season, and again, very grateful for my director, Sir David Bintley, to grant me half year to be out to do the film because they wanted 3-4 months of filming, and I have to take the rest of the season off. So I finished season, I think it was January 2008. I went to China beginning of February and started to shoot the film for about 3.5 months. And so everything just happens there. But it was really right place at the right time. And afterwards, Bruce actually did tell me, when he first saw me, my image fit his image in his head, what each tradition should look like. And the way I speak, the way my mannerism is almost the correct in his head as well. And so they just went, okay, well, finally, we found somebody. That was the last bit, and I think they were almost giving up. So yeah, so for me, it was a gift from God, really. Yeah.
And what has been the response following the film from the Asian community specifically? Can you share? I mean, obviously, everybody loves the movie, but did it mean something special for Asian audiences?
It was the first time that Asian as a lead, really, in the Western film. And it's a ballet film, it's a Western art. And I mean, the response I get in Australia, it's phenomenal. Like at the time, everyone was so proud. And it was very, I don't really know the impact, to be honest with you, because the film wasn't imported into UK. But what I was so moved is I've never met Edward Long until last year. this choreographer, the director of Met's ballet
Ballerina, yeah.
Ballet Met. And I've never met him, and I know he's so established. And I met him in Satiswell's theater last year when I went and visit a friend of mine from San Francisco, and we ended up chatting. And he was like, "Chi, you probably don't know this, but we were so proud as Asian to see an Asian dancer could represent us." And that really, 10 years after, and with a very established choreographer who's Asian, who tells me this, really moved me. And perhaps that for me, I had a great fun doing it. And, I didn't think it was going to make this much impact. And it helped me tremendously career-wise. The people wanted to see me dancing. I started getting invitation to be guests, guests around the world with the companies. And but I didn't know that it was also how proud those my fellow Asian people will feel that it's not only Jackie Chan or Jet Li. As an Asian ballet dancer, now we finally have a ballet film that is made on a real person who's Chinese and acted also a Chinese person who's also a dancer, and that's amazing. So again, I'm truly felt that I'm grateful. Yeah. Well, and this film is going to continue.
Yes,
it's going to continue.
I think you will get a lot of Instagram love from this interview, from people coming out of the woodwork, talking about how proud the movie has made them. We actually interviewed Ed as part of this series as well, so he'll be a part of this interview series. But yeah, no, I think it definitely has made a big impact, and it goes up there with the other great dance films where they actually employ dancers, like real dancers, to do it. So I think that makes it a really special film as well. So I just wanted to wrap us up, but wanted to know if you had any advice for all of us as a community. We're all hurting right now with Corona. All of the shows have been canceled. But also as part of rebuilding, how do we get more people, maybe like us, to come and fall in love with ballet? I mean, you and I both come from traditional Chinese backgrounds, ballet might not necessarily, even though your father is a dancer, it's not necessarily a part of our culture in the same way. So how do we get more Chinese people to say, oh, ballet is cool, ballet expresses something about my experience as a human being, and I want to be a part of this. I want to send my kids to ballet school. I want to buy a ticket. I want to donate. How do we get more people who look like us to be involved?
I do think it's very, very hard. It's not only the people like us. I think ballet in general, especially with the boys. I mean, we have this problem right now in UK. I think it's just really it's the best way is to educate, to tell them. I mean, I'm doing something back home in China where I show up and I tell them, I ask them, what do you think is ballet? Everyone still call me a ballerina. They think I'm still on point. Then I would just educate by telling them, okay, male ballet dancers, not only we have to dance, we have to lift, we have to jump, we also have to look calm, and we also have to look graceful. And none of the other athletes in that sense have to do what we do. So we are up there with all the athletes. We have to be very athletic to be able to do those ballets. And I would just show them a few jumps to get them going, okay, I didn't know the ballet dancers does that. And that's exactly what I did with the film crew. They were like, ballet, until I did my thing. They were like, whoa, is that what you guys do? I said, wow, yeah, this is what we're doing. And I think the notes I tell them, I know there's a lot of, people thinking that if you are a ballet dancer, that you'll be very feminine. And that's why I don't want my kids to get into there. First of all, I mean, it's 21st century. Your sexuality shouldn't be an issue. And secondly, that's not true. I get frustrated every time when I talk to this topic. Why aren't people going to ballet and seeing the beautiful things about it and thinking that when you go to a dance, you see the beautiful choreographers with the music, and when you see dancers express their true feelings, catching the moments to show the true self to you, isn't that magical? And I do think it's education. You have to let the dancers, you have to let the community to know that ballet isn't just for ladies on point, to show them what the male dancers can do before, and then to show them different things. And I often do, obviously, the technical side will always grab the attention. So they go, oh, actually, that's the first thing, they switch. Okay, male dancers don't go on point. They dance, they jump. They do these crazy things, spin things. So it's very powerful and not feminine. Then you go from there. Then you see there's all different things. Then they will probably start to appreciate, okay, a dancers who's so masculine, but also can see the feminine side, to be so melancholic, to be so lyrical. Then they get to start to almost appreciate different aspects. But you have to draw them in some point. The first thing is perhaps to show them, okay, you think the dance is all feminine, I will show the opposite. And perhaps that's what I've been using. I try to get the young kids coming to see ballet. I say, I link to football. And myself, I'm not really into football, but I'm a massive fan of boxing and MMA. And so I will link that as a topic, and I will show how we are no different than those UFC fighters. How we are no different to those boxers. One of my true inspirations is Manny Pacquiao, who's Filipino, who's an amazing boxer. And I draw my inspiration from that, as well as some of the Mexican boxers, Marco Antonio Barrera, who's an amazing boxer. I draw my inspiration to that. And those are so mature to Freddie Mercury, who's an absolute true showman, and I draw inspiration from all that. There's nothing wrong with it. And I think we have to just educate them by starting to see the masculinity in the ballet dancing, in the male dancer first, and to tell you that we are not just going on demi point. We do our double twos. We do our amazing tricks that not everyone can do it. Only a true athletes can do it. For them to appreciate the perhaps slightly softer bits. So that's probably my approach to it, and that's what I've been trying to do. To get the respect. Oh, okay, this is what you can do. Now I'm taking you seriously. Then I can educate you. Then we'll have a conversation, because now you understand what I'm talking about. Because everyone will, before they understand you, they will always have a glass with a color looking at you. Okay, so you're a ballet dancer. What is that about? Then I tell you, okay, this is what we're about. And I think that's what I've been trying to do. I'm not sure whether it's going to work, but so far, for the people who I've spoken to, they always go, oh, okay. Oh, you're a ballet dancer. Oh, this is what you do. Oh, I have no idea. Okay, after I've been talking to them, then I always link the film. When they watch the film, they're like, oh, I'm gonna go to see a ballet. So that's what I've been doing. So hopefully that's gonna be helpful as well.
Well, please do keep it up, because we do want to make sure that we have more young Asian talent seeing their place in this ballet world, and seeing a lot more success, especially on choreographers as well. So nurturing that next generation of Asian voices. So thank you again, Chi, for taking the time to chat with me. Thank you, everybody tuning in at home. Wanted to make one more shout out. Make sure to read the book. It's a really good book. And then go see the movie. Chi is amazing.
Sorry, could I just say?
Please
watch the movie first, then read the book, because the book is has got so much more intensity than the film, because as a film is only an hour and 50 minutes, we only covered about 40%. If you like the film, go read the book. You're going to love even more. Yeah.
And I do have
the
to
other
say,
way around.
my dad, his English is not great. He doesn't really read books in English, and he read this book and loved it, and said it also resonated with his story, even though he's not a dancer. So I highly recommend this for everybody. Watch the movie, read the book, and also tune into our Instagram page to see who tomorrow's dancer will be, and then tune in at noon Eastern time, next conversation. Chi, thank you again. Have a lovely rest of May, and take care, everybody.
Pleasure. Thank you. Bye.